Licensed games didn't really have the best reputation back then. This is mainly because many companies would just use them as a form of marketing, as many of the devs who worked on these games were not given the proper time to make them great. With most games then having a 2 to 3 year development cycle, there was no promise that the show it was based on would still be airing. It's even worse for movie tie-ins, as movies only get a few major releases, and the game is pressured to come out before the film. There are some exceptions of course, mainly if the game was based on a brand that wasn't going away anytime soon, that is. But with smartphones and apps becoming more popular in the late 2000s, many of these studios would gravitate more towards mobile games, as not only were they cheaper and faster to produce, but they also offered more of a profit with in-game ads and microtransactions. Now when a licensed game is announced, most people get excited, as much like movies and TV shows based on video games, licensed games have left our less satisfactory era. But that didn't mean that all licensed games back then were bad. Some even had their own cult following, or are talked about today. So today on Cackling Pumpkins, we'll be going over some of the best licensed games from the 6th generation. Some things to remember. 1. I'm only talking about games that I've played, so if I miss one you like, then leave them below for a potential sequel. 2. This is a game about the 6th generation, meaning ones that came out for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, Dreamcast, or the Game Boy Advance. So games like DuckTales and NES, Arkham Asylum, or Multiverses won't be on here.
Heaven or hell, duel 1, let's rock!
Honey, how could you?
It was easy. You're my bitch.
You're making jokes now. The world really is going to hell.
To start off this list, we've got Spawn Armageddon, based on the comic book series by Todd McFarlane. Spawn was once a man named Albert Simmons, who was once an assassin for the US security group, but is killed by his own partner and is sent to hell. To see his wife Wanda one last time, he makes a deal with the devil, Malbolgia, to become his hellspawn. But he's sent 5 years in the future where Wanda has moved on and Simmons suffers memory loss. So he becomes an anti-hero protecting the little guy from thugs and monsters. In the game, Armageddon, a war between demons and angels has begun. The game plays like a hack and slash with minor platforming elements. Think like Devil May Cry. Spawn can use several weapons from his axe, chains, and several firearms to kill every creature who spawns in. What? Oh, I didn't even notice that. Well, I guess this is what happens when you give a guy whose name is also a popular gaming term his own video game. You can also use spawned necroplasm powers, which can help you in tight situations, but they are not unlimited in their uses. The game is fun, but there are some issues such as the camera, some enemies having way too much health, and when you die, you have to start the entire mission all over again. And trust me, some of these missions can be long. But I've only really had issues in a few levels. The bosses are the best part of the game in my opinion, but I'm someone who loves boss fights anyway. But I appreciate many of these designs, and it makes sense why the game is so faithful to the source material, as the game was directed by Spawn's creator, Todd McFarlane. The voice actors from the HBO animated series also reprised their roles, and also the game was published by Namco, which makes sense as Spawn would appear inside the Xbox version of Soul Calibur 2 as a guest character.
We're collaborating with angels now? Angels are involved with all of this. All right, I've had enough. You two can bicker among yourselves. I'm going to find my answers my own way.
Tom, I'm suspecting Screech. Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Silence, puny fairy!
Wow, I saw that coming.
At number 9, we've got Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules. The series is about Timmy Turner, who's an average kid that no one understands, so he's granted his own fairy godparents, Cosmo and Wanda, who grant his every wish as long as he keeps them secret and follows the rules. In the game, Timmy gets fed up with the rules and wishes them away, which you'd think would be like the first rule in the book, but I digress. Vicky gets her hands on the book as she indirectly causes havoc with her own wishes.
I wish Vicky didn't have that book! Well, I wish you were still in bed asleep so I wouldn't have to deal with you and your freaky, disgusting habits!
Timmy is punished in Fairy World and now can only make small wishes by gathering runaway stars. If he wants his fairies to get all their powers back, then he must collect all of the pages of the rules. When you start the game, you enter a small room being Timmy's room, but as you complete levels, the house opens up. All these levels are based on different episodes of the show, and each level also changes Timmy's appearance. The set pieces look incredible and just like the show, but the characters don't look as good with limited animations. They obviously tried to replicate the style of the show with a cel-shaded look and thick outlines on the characters. The only real problem in the presentation is the voice acting. The actors reprise their roles and they perform well, but it's the quality of the sound that's off. Every character sounds like they recorded in a shed, and some sound effects seem to be missing.
Surrounded by enemies, outnumbered, outgunned. This is the job for Crash Nebula!
If we had enough power, we could conjure the real Crash! But we'll have to make do with Timmy in a spacesuit. Attach to activate the Justice Cannon!
But the soundtrack is surprisingly great. The gameplay is well, the level design is alright, and the wishes do have a lot of variety. It's a pretty good game based on a pretty good show.
Wrong. Me, the great Vicky? That squirt's so out of it. It's like he's living in the past.
What? Where am I? Hello? Hello? Anybody there? Marty? Melvin? Gloria? Mommy?
We have Madagascar. This is a game I played in my childhood and was expecting to see it age poorly, but I actually feel the opposite. This is a rare instance where something from my childhood is better than I remember. The game's story is much like the films, once again with some minor changes for the sake of making it work as a video game, and for the most part you get the gist of the story well. The game and film centers around 4 Central Park Zoo animals as the zebra, Marty, wants to experience the wild and accidentally gets his friends sent over to an African wildlife reserve, but their shipping containers fall off the boat as they end up at Madagascar. In the game, you play as different characters from the film, sometimes switching between them during certain segments. You'll play as Marty, Alex, Gloria, and Melman as they complete each stage. Some of it is as simple as getting from point A to point B, while others have you perform different jobs for the animal life of Madagascar. There is one more character I forgot to mention, and that is Skipper, but you only have to play as him and the other penguins in one stage, and it's probably the least interesting level. It's just your obligatory standard stealth stage. You often see these in God knows how many games from this era. You can unlock other abilities with these cards. Find 3 and you'll get a new power, most of which are fun to use in and outside of what they're designed for. I would argue this game is better than Shrek 2, as you don't have to worry about the AI as there are no AI partners. So why is this game so good? Well, probably because the game was developed by Toys for Bob, who will later develop the Spiral Reignited trilogy and Crash 4, It's About Time.
Marty, am I ever glad to see you?
What's wrong, Melvin? Oh, wait, I forgot. Everything.
Yes, we've had licensed games based on TV specials as well. The series is about Danny Fenton, whose parents are ghost hunters. They build a portal that's supposed to access the ghost zone. When it doesn't work, they just quit. When Danny took a look inside of it, he accidentally activates it while inside, which merges his DNA with ghost DNA, giving him ghost powers. He uses these powers to stop evil ghosts who have escaped the ghost zone and send them back from whence they came. The special, Ultimate Enemy, is all about time travel. As Danny thinks about his future comes to visit him, as he has to deal with an older evil version of himself, simply called Dan Phantom. The GBA game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, where Danny must fight ghosts from one side of the screen to the other. The commands are borderline button mashy, and there isn't that much skill needed, but it's still a fun button masher. As with each stage completed, you gain experience and level up, which each level you either get a stat boost or a new attack. You also have Fenton technology acting as power-ups and weapons throughout each stage. The game may be a button masher, but it still tries to offer variety. You also get bosses from the special, a new game plus, mini-games accessed through passwords, and a boss rush where you can play as not just Danny, but also Dan as well. Many of these bosses aren't just the ones you encounter in the game, but also other ghosts from the series, such as Ember, Skulker, and Vlad Plasmius. The game's main story is only about an hour long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it still tries to add as much as possible, and damn did they succeed! I will consider this to be the best licensed game on the Game Boy Advance, at least in my opinion.
Oh man, that sounds cool! I mean, oh no, I hope their plan fails. Who am I kidding? Zombies eating brains? Oh, this is gonna rock!
We're at the halfway point in this list. Simpsons Hit and Run. Simpsons Hit and Run is a GTA-styled game where you replace everything rated M with The Simpsons. The game has you play as several members of the Simpsons cast, as you drive around the map racing others and performing jobs for the city folk, as you try to uncover a conspiracy involving robot wasps and aliens. You're going to be driving more than anything else, so it's nice the cars have good control, even if the physics seem a bit off.
Now I wish I had insurance.
Each map loops around themselves, as they all have their own secrets to hide. Whether that be in car or on foot, the game is filled with life, as each character has a lot to say. The humor is similar to that of the show for the time, so take that for what you will.
Fireworks make my ears yell! Here's some gumdrops. Now make with the works. My daddy's going to put you in jail. Bye!
Comedy is quite possibly the most subjective thing in entertainment. The soundtrack is primarily a rock-inspired track, which fits the genre of the game, but maybe a little off for a Simpsons soundtrack. Overall, The Simpsons Hit and Run is a GTA-styled game you wouldn't want to miss out on.
You need a professional scumbag. Follow a cop until you find one. You'll have better luck if you know, look American.
Thank you, horrible man. But that wicked weirdo makes me a little uncomfortable.
Welcome to my laboratory! Have you come to donate your body to science?
At number 5, we got Shrek Super Slam. Originally I was going to put Shrek 2 on the list, and that wasn't until I went and got footage of Super Slam. There I realized how great of a game it really is. Shrek Super Slam is a 3D brawler, similar to games like Power Stone. You can play as either a character from the first 3 films, or one of the many original characters made for this game, like Black Knight and Luna. Every character has their own unique combos that can be performed by hitting the square and triangle buttons in the right order. You have to use your abilities and items that spawn in the stage to fill up your slam meter. Once filled, you press triangle and unleash the attack. Doing so will give you a point. Whoever has the most points by the end of the match will win. There is a lot to take in with this game. For starters, canceling is a mechanic that is taught to you in-game. Charge your heavy attack and cancel it with your shield. You can also cancel edge grabs with your air attack, perform wall jumps that if done right on some stages, you can perform some crazy movement. The game also feels really good to control, minus the standard jank that was just about in every game at the time. Nearly every item is fun to use, and every stage is not only unique in shape or hazards, but if you slam an opponent, it will slowly destroy the stage. It can be fun just to see your opponent bounce off the walls from a good slam. The game has an entire story mode. Each level has its own cutscenes, and there's also a huge map of dozens of challenges. These challenges will reward you with skins, stages, and characters once completed. The soundtrack is also shockingly good. I mean really, this one track sounds like it would be used for a League of Legends cinematic, but here it is in a Shrek game. There was obviously a lot of effort put into this game. It feels like the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl of its era, a licensed brawler that's comparable to something that came before, but not only strives in it, but also offers some competitive techniques, even if it was underappreciated.
And as they filed out of the room, the drunkies didn't wake up, and they slept happily ever. Can it, announcer guy, or I'll pound you into next week!
It's hero time. Go mighty Omnitrix power.
So, Gwen, what do you have from those ranger station cameras?
For number 4, we have Ben 10, Protector of Earth. Based on the animated series by Man of Action and Cartoon Network, Ben 10 is about a boy named Ben Tennyson who discovers a device called the Omnitrix that allows him to temporarily transform into different aliens. He uses their powers to fight off villains, mad scientists, mutants, wizards, and more while enjoying his summer vacation with his cousin Gwen and grandfather Max. In the game, a small alien drone absorbs energy from the Omnitrix, limiting Ben's transformations as many of his worst enemies come back to haunt him. Each of them stronger than ever thanks to these Omnitrix crystals, which Ben must find to recover his other forms.
Oh yeah,
I'm a mean, green, butt-kicking machine.
Of course.
The game is a 3D side-scrolling beat-em-up. You can use the Omnitrix to transform into either Heat Blast, Forearms, Accelerate, Cannonbolt, or Wildvine, as you use their powers to fight enemies, solve puzzles, and cause mayhem. However, you can only stay in an alien form for so long, as using more powerful attacks drains your energy faster. When the Omnitrix times out, you must wait for it to recharge before you can transform again. This begins to become less of a problem later when you unlock Master Control. This is every kid's dream, to be able to use the full potential of the Omnitrix, feeling like a total badass as you switch between transformations. By defeating enemies you get experience, which you can also use to unlock new combo moves. So many of these are flashy, powerful, and fun to use, and there are so many combos that you most likely won't be able to unlock all of them by the end of the game. The boss fights are fun, as there are many of Ben's old enemies like Kevin and Ghost Freak. The game can get repetitive, as it isn't short and sweet like Danny Phantom the Ultimate Enemy, but with the transformations, combo moves, and variety in enemies, it's still a great experience from beginning to end.
You, however, have done well. Retrieving the null void projector was invaluable. Simply return to me the final item I need to complete my plans, and you will have both the Omnitrix and the boy to do with what you will.
Take your soggy mob flips back to Jersey, tweakers.
Hey, let's just go skate. If we tear up your favorite spots, you guys help film us?
I debated with myself on if Tony Hawk games should be considered licensed games, but in the end they still needed a license to use his name and likeness, so number 3 goes to Tony Hawk Underground, or Thug for short. You play as your own custom skater, trying to make it to the big leagues with your, friend, Eric Sparrow. Okay, yeah, this guy is a dick. From the very beginning, Eric is a problem, as he sets cars on fire and gets you in trouble with the police. But if it wasn't obvious that this guy is a major prick, he takes credit for a life-threatening stunt that you pulled and screws you out of fame you deserve.
Hard? You weren't even in it, but Eric's part ruled. You did the sickest rooftop gap I've ever seen. Roof to roof in Hawaii, 40 stories up.
What the? That was my trick and my spot.
Eric Sparrow is one of the most despised characters from this generation, and it is satisfying to give him what he deserves. See, Pokemon? This is why it's better your rivals are mean. As if it wasn't anyone's guess, Tony Hawk Underground is a skateboarding title, but while you have multiple maps to skate through and perform tricks, you also have a full campaign to experience. But this campaign can be stingy with its time limits. You're not going to get through this campaign by winging it. It's so satisfying to perform an insane line of tricks and lane it perfectly. Each map has an equal amount of trick and grinding opportunities. As already mentioned, you play as your own custom character, and there's a lot you can do with the skater creator. Keep in mind, this game came out in 2003. If you change your character's gender, not only will they have different voice clips during gameplay, but also during cutscenes, which I would assume wasn't easy. There's a reason why this game is just as beloved as the Pro Skater titles from the PS1. Now where's that remaster, huh?
Tell me you got that.
Hell yeah, I got it.
I can't believe I did that. That's the best thing I ever filmed.
It's the best thing anybody ever filmed.
Stay where you are.
I don't pay you for your opinion, Parker. I pay you for photos.
Well,
Let me guess. You don't have any pictures, do you? You're fired. Come back when you get me shots of that red and blue wacko.
For our last movie tie-in game, we have Spider-Man 2. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and is now trying to balance his life as a superhero and an average human being. He begins to wonder if he can even be both, and if he should leave one behind for the other. While the game's main villain is Doc Ock, just like the film, the game also adds several other characters for the sake of adding more to the story. Black Cat, Shocker, and Mysterio are all here to add more life to this game. Think of this as bonus content in addition to the film's story. There is some stuff left out from the film's story, such as Peter's existential crisis, and the majority of Aunt May's presence is cut down. So if they didn't add this additional content to the story, it would feel like a diet version of the films. Instead, it feels like its own thing. The game is an open world title, as you swing from one side of New York to the other. You have your story missions, but you're also encouraged to help around town to gain skill points. Skill points you can use to buy new abilities and upgrades. Swinging is the best part of this game, as it feels like you're in control of the swing, its speed, and Peter's direction. It's also true to the character, as webbing doesn't just connect to the sky as you can swing anywhere, it needs to connect to something, so it's better to stay on the rooftops, but not too high. The combat is unfortunately shallow, but it's not too demanding and most enemies just need a few hits before they're beaten. You can also use your webs to not only contain enemies, but swing them around. Throwing punches is boring, but doing stuff like this is amazing. It would take 14 years for a new Spider-Man game to be able to match the web-swinging action this game offered with Insomniac's Spider-Man in 2018. So this game is not only one of the best licensed games, but also one of the best Spider-Man games.
You were right. I feel much better.
You see? I told you, baby. Stick with me and you'll be fine. Come see me next time you're feeling down, alright? I'll see you around.
Okay, is the magic wishing word?
It used to be Alakazama Alabala Wiesna Tikitana Fushbar Griddle Bits von Wiederschnauzer, but I kept forgetting it.
Are you sure this'll work?
Sure.
I'm sure many people aren't surprised to what number 1 is. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is a 3D platformer where you play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy as you go through different locations in Bikini Bottom to fight robots and collect golden spatulas. Plankton creates a machine that not only creates robots, but duplicates them. However, he loses control of them as they cause chaos in the city.
No! Oh, my good China!
SpongeBob and Patrick think they're responsible, as the prior night they made a wish for robots to be real.
Authorities are not sure who is responsible for unleashing the mechanical menaces, but they have assured us that the person is in big trouble.
Uh-oh.
So they take action cleaning what they think is their mess. The game's visuals try to emulate the show's style, even if the colors are a tad bit saturated in my opinion. The remaster did a better job with the colors, but this game still looks good, as you get cutscenes that introduce each enemy and boss. Think of this game as something like Super Mario 64, as you have a set number of big open levels, each with their own obstacles for golden spatulas. But unlike Mario 64, if you collect a golden spatula, you stay in the level and continue from there. Nintendo wouldn't implement this idea for a Mario game until 2017's Odyssey. Took long enough. But it's not just golden spatulas you should collect, but also Patrick socks and shiny things. Each has their own purpose. Each character has their own abilities, as Patrick can carry stuff and Sandy can swing on her lasso, but SpongeBob is the only one who gets new attacks through bubble blowing. For me, the worst part of this game is the knockback. If you get hit, you get pushed back quite a bit, sometimes right off the stage. Thankfully you have a double jump, but that doesn't always save you. So why did I put this at number 1, you may ask? Well, some of it is personal bias, as I do love 3D platformers, but the game is legitimately great. It's got solid control, variety, a sense of humor, and lots to do in and outside of the game. And if you need more of a reason, this game is the only one on the list that got a remaster. But I would love for all of these games to get another chance, so you can see why they're considered better than your typical licensed game from that era. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope it gets even better. This has been Cackling Pumpkins. Your connection will be strange.
Well, Plankton, I hope you learned your lesson.
Oh, I certainly did. Next time I'll get it right.
Ouch! We won! Who wants to get ice cream?
I do!